Hello friends and welcome back. If you're new here, hi. My name is Callie Bransford and I share videos on productivity, organization, affordable living, and on occasion I bring in some mom content because I am the mother of a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old, and personally I have found in parenthood one of the unexpectedly hardest parts of being a mom has been feeding my babies. From breastfeeding struggles to introducing solids to dealing with picky eating. I didn't realize the struggles that I'd face on a day-to-day basis when it came to feeding my children. Not to mention the immense pressure and mom guilt I feel over what they ate all of the time. So I thought that it would be worthwhile to sit down and get honest and transparent with you guys all about toddler feeding and share some of the things that I have done in our home that has made feeding my toddler a lot less stressful for me. So let's jump into this. Okay, tip number 1 is to give yourself grace. This is the first and most important one. It is also the hardest. We don't always hear the truth about what's happening on a day-to-day basis from other people's homes, so we all assume that all of the other kids are just eating better than ours. But you're not failing if your kid eats the same dinner for 4 nights in a row. You're not failing if they didn't touch a vegetable all day. It's not your fault that they're a picky eater. Hold on. Let me just repeat that last one. It is not your fault if your child is a picky eater. I personally wouldn't consider my toddler a picky eater, but he's also not overly adventurous. I'd put him somewhere in the middle, but I spend time worrying that he's not eating enough variety, that I'm doing things that are negatively impacting his eating habits, that he's not eating meat enough, or he's not eating enough vegetables, or, you know, pretty much any other food-related worry that you want to enter in there. Once I allowed myself to let go of that worry and give myself grace in feeding him, it instantly became a lot easier. And so what I mean here when I say give yourself grace is, 1, try to stop comparing what your kid is eating to other kids or what other people say their kids are eating. Your kid is different. Your kid is not that kid. Your house is not that person's house. And remember that you're feeding a child. And as we all know with kids and with toddlers, they have their own way of doing things. They want to do things their own, you know, march to their own beat, if you will. Try to let go of some of that so that you can go into feeding your kids with just a little less stress and to be a little more just like cool and calm about it. All right, my next tip is to keep on offering. I think most of us as parents have heard that toddlers need to see something many times before they will try eating it, and this is so true. I cannot tell you how many times my child has refused or spit out a food before he willingly ate it. So let me give you an example. Scrambled eggs. Personally, I eat scrambled eggs almost every single day, and my toddler refused them for months. I probably started offering scrambled eggs to Miles when he was like 8 months old, and it wasn't until he was almost 2 years old that he willingly and happily started eating them. Now, most often it doesn't always take this long, but the point is, even if your kid has refused something 10, 15, 20 times, don't give up. Just keep offering it. Even if they don't eat it, just the general exposure to this food is going to help. So seeing a certain food, touching a certain food, putting the food in their mouth and spitting it out, these are all steps to eating a food. And remember, their taste buds are constantly growing and changing just like ours are. So sometimes they might not like something now, but they might like it later, just like we have. I'm sure there's something that you can think of that you didn't used to like that you like now, or maybe you used to like and you don't really like anymore. So just keep offering foods and never put anything on the never will eat list. It's your job to offer it. You can't force them to eat it, but you can continue to offer it to them and give them the exposure, and that's the best that you can do. Okay, the next trick is what I like to call the something they'll eat with the something they might not eat rule. I think one of the hardest acts of feeding kids is wanting them to eat well and eat variety, but also wanting to fill their bellies up. Nobody wants to send their babies to bed on an empty tummy, and so I think this is why so often we fall back on our tried and true favorites that we know they're gonna eat. So the trick I always use when I make Miles's plate is I focus on putting something on his plate I know he'll eat, something I think he'll eat, and then something he's never eaten before. Either it's new or it's something he's refused in the past. This way I know he's got something he's eating and filling his belly with. I also know he's getting the much needed exposure to new foods as well. So even if he doesn't touch them or if he immediately takes it off his plate, at least he's seeing them and he's being exposed to them. And I know for me, sometimes the hardest thing is to find new and different things to expose them to. Because if you're like me, you might have your own eating habits that you fall into. Like I told you, I eat scrambled eggs like every morning. So I tend to do a lot of the same foods over and over again for myself. So I do try to bring in new meals and new foods for Miles so that he gives chances to try new stuff. So, you know, maybe if it's just getting something different at takeout, maybe it's just actively thinking to add 1 or 2 new things to the grocery list. One thing my husband and I try to do is at least once a week try something new, like a new meal that we've seen online, even if it's similar to something we usually eat, even just changing it a little bit. And then personally, something that we like to do probably every 4 to 6 weeks is we get a meal delivery. We've been using HelloFresh for probably 4 or 5 years now, and it's our favorite meal delivery. Now, HelloFresh is cool enough to sponsor today's video, but like I said, I have truly been using HelloFresh in our house with our own money, purchasing it month after month for probably about 4 years now. It is our favorite meal kit delivery service. It's the one that we've been using, but I want to take a second to tell you a little bit more about them and why we love using them for toddler eating and family meals. Okay, so HelloFresh sends seasonal recipes with pre-measured ingredients right to your door. Each week, you're gonna get a bunch of recipes to choose from on the app. Pick the ones you want, including low carb, vegetarian, and other diet-friendly choices. I love it because it gives our family variety to meals outside of our typical rotation. If you're like us, we tend to fall into meal recipe ruts where we're just using the same things over and over again, but it doesn't take a ton of my time. I don't have to research new recipes, I don't need to make grocery lists, and most of the HelloFresh meals are done in just about 30 minutes. And the options are super flexible, which is awesome for somebody with a young family. Like I said, sometimes we get a box a few weeks in a row, sometimes we skip a few weeks, sometimes we add in extra meals, sometimes we get some of their oven ready options. It's really just a super flexible program, so you're not locked into anything. And like I said, since HelloFresh is cool enough to sponsor this video, I have a promo code for you guys, which is going to get you 14 meals for free, which is a freaking amazing deal. So just go to HelloFresh.com, use my promo code ButFirstCoffee14, all one word, to get 14 free meals plus free shipping. All right, my next hack is to consider serving foods different ways. So don't forget about the power of just changing slightly the way you serve a certain food in order to get your little one to try it or eat it. So let's go back to my scrambled eggs example. Prior to eating scrambled eggs alone, I started offering them to Miles in a little wrap with some cheese and avocado and ketchup, and Miles loved these little egg burritos. It was exposing him to the egg flavor and the consistency and the texture, and I'm sure it's why he now will willingly eat scrambled eggs. Sometimes they just need that bridge between foods, serving a food a slightly different way to make it more like interesting or appetizing to them. So let me give you a few options. 1, consider offering it with a sauce or dip, like ketchup, hummus, ranch, jam, peanut butter, mustard, sour cream. This one always works great. For my son, he loves dipping things. Putting something in a wrap or a sandwich, like I said, putting my eggs in a wrap for my son really worked really well. And a sandwich for most kids is a pretty like familiar concept. You could put it on top of pasta or on top of like a pizza or flatbread if your kid loves pasta, loves pizza. Try adding a little cheese or a little sugar. I got Miles to eat sweet potatoes by the first time by adding a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and carrots by adding a little sprinkle of brown sugar. I also love the idea of offering it in a novel way. If your kid is a little bit of an older toddler, you can cut it into shapes. Use animal toothpicks. This could encourage them to try it because it's just a little bit more fun and novel. Another option is to try it on the go. I find that Miles is more likely to eat something when it's offered in a lower pressure environment than in the high chair with a plate sitting down like eating dinner. I can usually get him to eat a wider variety of things if we're having a picnic or eating in the stroller or just sitting out on the porch. Miles is also a very distractible eater, so sometimes, again, just like sitting in the high chair, it's just a little bit boring, if you will. So if we're eating in a sort of more interesting environment, like I said, going for a walk or we're out on a picnic, he's a lot more likely to eat the food. Another option is to let them feed you. This worked really well when Miles was like a 1.5 to 2. If it's something that they won't touch, usually touch can be the hardest step to overcome. So if there was a food that Miles had never touched, I would ask him to give it to me, and it would at least get him comfortable picking it up and touching it and sort of closing that gap in the time to trying it. And that actually brings me into my next trick, which is that you are the best role model. So once again, I'm gonna bring in the egg example. The first few times Miles willingly ate scrambled eggs alone, not in a burrito, was off of my plate. Toddlers are naturally curious about what you are doing and what you are eating. It's why parents always joke that they can never eat a full meal because their kids always want to steal half of it. Hands down, the most efficient way I have found to getting Miles to at least try something new is by eating it in front of him. So even if he doesn't like it, he's far more likely to eat something if he sees me eating it. So this is why I always make sure to eat meals together daily. Now, this doesn't always mean that we eat dinner together. I think sometimes we feel this very big pressure to have family dinners, and don't get me wrong, family dinners are stellar, I love them, but toddlers are known to get a little bit crazy at 5 p.m. They've been busy all day, it's getting close to bedtime. Sometimes forcing them to sit down to a meal at this time of day is a surefire recipe for disaster. For a long time, we often didn't consistently eat dinner with Miles until he was probably like 2.5 years old, because it just never worked out well for anyone. So to balance this out, we would eat other meals together when he was just like in a better state of mind. We would often have breakfast and or lunch together. So even if it's not dinners you're eating together, if you find eating dinner with your 2-year-old to be really hard, try to eat at least one meal together a day. If you want your little one to eat something, eat it in front of them a lot. And my final hack is to get your kids helping in the kitchen. Yeah, letting your kids cook can be messy and usually takes 3 times longer, but it helps expose them to new foods and ingredients, helps them build language skills, increases their self-worth and confidence, and overall just lays a stronger foundation for good eating habits. And this doesn't always mean letting them cook everything. I often just give Miles a simple task to help with at meals, like buttering his toast or mixing the oatmeal. It's also really great fine motor and life skills practice. All right, you guys, that does it. That is some of my best sort of tricks and hacks for getting my toddler to eat a little bit more, or just in general let go of some of the stress that make it easier for me to feed him and to get him to eat more variety and a little bit more healthy. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you all in my next video.